When you partner with Axon, you immediately gain access to a full range of products and solutions designed to meet the complex needs of today's grower. We carry all major brands and sizes of tires and wheels. We specialize in large diameter wheels for large equipment. We have one of the largest OEM replacement wheel inventories in North America. Known for extreme flotation setups, duals, and triples, we have wheels for all makes and models of tractors, sprayers, combines, and grain carts. If we don't have the wheel in stock, we'll custom build, sandblast, and paint in-house. There isn't a more vast inventory in North America dedicated to helping dealers move more iron. With facilities on the West Coast and in the heart of the Midwest, leverage our 230,000 square feet of indoor inventory to solve any problem a grower may have. Move more iron with Axon.
Moving iron.
Hello and welcome to Moving Iron Podcast. This Moving Iron Podcast is brought to you by the good folks over at Tractor Zoom. I got Andy Campbell back on here to talk about what's happening in the marketplace. Andy, how you doing, bud?
Fantastic. We're entering into a little bit of a fall weather. It's got that smell of harvest. It's a good feeling.
Yeah, it's my favorite time of the year. It's going into fall and then going into summer is usually my typically two favorite things. But fall has a special place in my heart because it's football season. You know,
I know. It smells like football out there, doesn't it?
It's all back, yes.
Yeah.
Trying to get after it. Yeah, so there is, to say that there's a lot going on in the used equipment space is an understatement. If you take a look at the sheer number of combines that are going through auction right now, it's staggering. It's a lot more than I thought would be happening right now at this particular time. If someone asked me what it looked like, because typically we don't see a big push of any kind of auction, real auction activity until mid-October going into November, December, and that's just not the case this year, man. You've got to be tracking a ton of auctions right now.
We are, yeah, and it started earlier than we were really anticipating. Yeah, starting in July, a few dealerships and even just some typical auctions started hitting those Class 8 combines, and we were seeing like some auctions had like 8 different 780s that were going at a time, and then it just cascaded and it kept going all the way through August.
Yep. Yeah, and you look at where the Class 8 combine, that's the real tight spot. I was worried about. Still have my concerns about the X9s and the big Class 10 combines you see out there from other manufacturers as well. But as you're looking at those, I really was concerned about the number of those on the marketplace just because of sheer volume of dollars, not so much number of machines. But when you start taking a look at the Class 8 combines, holy crap, man. It's talking about a group of machines that have really moved in not just the dollars that you see out there, but the number of units that are out there. And the month-over-month gain, with all the stuff going through auction, is still climbing. That's the crazy part of it.
Yeah, and that's where I think we see the biggest risk from a dealership, because the Class 8s, there's the most of those out there. And, I mean, they're not a 9 or a 10 from the value, but they're not far off. And so those two, the volume and the price combo, really makes that a pretty big inventory risk if you're stuck holding them.
Yep. And I think there's it's either, see what's today? Today's the 30th, is it?
30th.
There's Ag Pro has their big auction. It's today or tomorrow. I can't remember when it is, but I have to go check that out. I think it's today, I think. But anyway, I mean, there's another 34 combines that are going to sell. And I watched one earlier this week at Steffes where they had, a bunch of choppers and a bunch of combines and row crop tractors and, those kind of things. So, you watch what's going on there and you start seeing things, what's your data telling you month over month?
Yeah, well, starting with the Class 8 combines, that we expected the price to drop down a little bit, and it has. We're starting to see that suppress a little bit at auction with those combines, and really starting to see that the retail to wholesale margin increase in that gap to widen a little bit. Although one interesting thing, as I'm watching these auctions, and it's not for all of them, but it's for a lot of them, there's a lot of buyers that are holding on to that last second. Yes. And then you're thinking that some of these prices are going to be like rock bottom. And then right in the last 30 minutes, you'll see it peak up. So that the farmers still have some of that cash on hand, they're hesitant, and
Yeah.
so they're still looking for the deal, but they still need something.
Yeah.
And I think it is driving that price down a little bit lower because there's only so many times you can click in 30 minutes.
Right.
But it's it's a unique buying pattern that's happening
Yeah.
right now.
So I wrote an article for Farm Equipment Magazine about this very thing. My last article will be coming out here next month, I think, whatever. But that's what I watched too. I watched those X9 sell that stuff was had, and I watched that X9 that they had sell just because I wanted to see where things ended up. And as I took a hard look at what was going on, I mean, up until 30 minutes, I'm like, man, these things are going for just, they're going to be like 30, 40 cents on the dollar. Like, this is a reckoning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same deal. So you watch that, and there's about 30 minutes to go, and a couple of those machines brought $150,000 worth of more value in that 30-minute period. It's almost like the farmer is like, okay, here's all I'm going to spend, and I'm bidding not to lose instead of betting to win. I'm going to put my proxy in, and then I'm just going to walk away, and if I get it, I get it. Because the way you watch the pattern happen, it just was like bam, 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 all the way through, and it had everything to do with, I think, just, I mean, yeah, obviously some guys are sitting there watching there and clicking and doing their thing, but it's just the pattern that you saw stuff take off and fly. It was almost like, all right, I'm putting my proxy in, and I'm going to walk away, and whatever happens, happens, and if I get it, I get it. If I don't, I don't.
Right.
There wasn't the bidding frenzy that you would typically see that I'm going to win this machine, because the dollars that I saw on those machines going into the last day of bidding and those online sales were, I'm just like, man, because typically you have about 75% or so, 70% or so of the value of the machine already baked in there that last day of the sale, or last day of bidding on those online deals. And I was like, man, this is going to be gross. But it did. They turned out pretty well. I mean, you had, what was it, 504,000 on that X9 with the 2020 with 600 and some separator hours. You had a bunch of 780s that sold there, and they were all pretty good value.
Not bad.
And then you see what the choppers brought, and they brought more money than I thought they would. So I mean, it is a, like you said, I think there's a good signal out there that there's still money on the farm. There's just the uncertainty out there of what do I need to spend my money on, and I think that's what we're seeing here a little bit.
Exactly. And when I look at the auction patterns, what I see is you've got a November to about March time period when we were really hitting the peak on a lot of different things. I'm seeing on row crops, seeing on combines. And I think you're right. I think the mentality was different then, before a seed went in the ground, because people are like, I've got money to spend, it's a good time, and I'm out there to win. And so they were bidding their top dollar. Whereas now, I think they're conscious of what they don't know, and they're still looking for a deal because they've got money to spend. They know it'll be a profitable year, just not that profitable to win at all costs.
Right. Yep. And that's we're seeing that reflected a little bit. So, well, Andy, let's take a look at row crop tractors real quick. Let's have a quick conversation about that before we jump into your screen and stuff. Row crop tractors are something that I'm paying attention to. We're not seeing value go down on those at all. We are seeing the supply increase. There's the old adage that no matter what, I'll be able to sell a row crop tractor, which you can, but it's still, there comes a point in time when there's a saturation level. And I think the weird thing about the situation that we're in now is that we're looking at machines at all-time pricing, right? The pricing as high as it's ever been, on top of really 7.5%, 8% interest rates, depending on where you're at. But we're still seeing some movement there that have a lot to do with, again, kind of going back to what you're talking about, watching this stuff sell. I watched a couple of quad tracks. I've watched some X9s. I've watched some 8RXs. I've watched some 8R370s, this kind of thing sell. And it's the same situation where they're not bidding to win, they're bidding not to lose. And as you look at those things kind of come through, you probably are tracking something similar to that as well.
Yeah. Like I said earlier, you have this period, and this is, again, your 300 to 425 on your horsepower, and you've got a bit of a peak of the market in here when people were out there bidding to win, and that's when we were seeing auction values at the highest, and kind of that wholesale to retail margin, or the gap, probably the tightest. Obviously it's come down a little bit seasonally, but even now, the average gap, and this is a wide range of tractors we're looking at here. I'll dive into a little more detail in a second. We're still seeing the retail values incrementally climb, maybe not quite as fast as what they were early in 22, but still seeing that climb. But up here at the top, and I just wrote a post on this morning, that's why I've got this type of graph up. But you've got your overall supply on the yellow on the top. You got the sold is your green, and then the new inventory that's coming onto a dealer's lot is in blue. And yeah, you're just seeing that steady increase of what's coming into the dealer's lot, sales slowing down, and this is growing at an alarmingly fast rate.
Yes.
And so that's the part that's caught my eye. But still, they're tractors, and you and I talked about this before, that they're not seasonal like combines, so your holding cost risk is less. But these still cost $250,000, and
least,
so
yeah.
That's going to be a real risk if you can't move them.
Right.
But
yeah, I think that as you watch these things start to things kind of come through, what I'm really paying attention to on the row crop tractor side is that there's a lot of high $400,000, low $500,000 row crop tractors out there, a lot. And if you watch what those look like, I talk about the washout cycle a lot, but as I'm looking at these machines go through, the front end of the washout cycle is relatively full right now, and you're trying to make your way through to kind of disperse some of those out and kind of get that good product mix across the way. And as you watch that happen, it's we always watch the big slug of 12, 13, and 14 model machines kind of make their way through that age cycle. And no matter where you looked at, the little hump in the graph was always right there. And you kind of watch it move down the way as it went.
Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing that happen as fast as we want to see it happen when you're talking about high dollar machines, and that's a bit concerning has me a little concerned as I look at what the market looks like right now.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was looking at that earlier, you've got here just a dice up within our tractors in product, but those tractors less than 500 hours, there's considerably a lot more of those right now that are on the lot now versus a year ago.
Right.
And yeah, you're right that it's there's just a lot more front loaded right now. And for whatever reason, if farmers are opting to take some of those older ones, for whatever reason, cost, interest rates, fixability, it's happening and starting to change the dynamic of what's out there.
Yep. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to watch what that happens with that as we move in through this auction cycle, because this is the first time I've watched an auction cycle where there's a lot of late model stuff going through auction on the tractor side. Typically, you don't see that this time of year. If you see something like that, it's late October, November time frame. They threw it on and whatever to watch it go. But take a look at the online stuff out there, the Big Irons and the Auction Times and those kind of guys like that are doing weekly online sales. That's a big chunk of that is tractors, and that's a little bit surprising as we look at things right now.
Right. And one of the other things, you can't see it. This is just a static heat map down here, but just talking with a lot of dealers out there and the auctioneers, I'm starting to see a little bit of a flow from the western high plains and kind of moving down to the south and to the east a little bit across Iowa into Illinois. It just seems like there's an oversurplus of those type of tractors that are sitting up there epicentered around South Dakota, and just disproportionately trying to push their way down into the eastern corn belt.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too that I've always liked to track is that the movement of machines from north to south and south to north, because there's significantly different kinds of buyers as you look at the high spec stuff that comes out of the corn belt and moves into the south, and then the cheaper lower spec machines that move out of the south into the north that go into like feedlot operations and those kind of things. So watching what that happens there, that's also a good thing. But you brought up a good point there and what that movement looks like.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, we're seeing it. Seeing it in a lot of different things, but yeah, row crop tractors here, especially those John Deere 8Rs, seeing a lot of that movement happen that way.
Yeah. Yep. When you look at what's it look like when you show a combine right now? Because that's another thing too. That northern corn belt, a lot of machines that come out of the Nebraskas, Iowas, Illinois. You start looking at like Minnesota, South Dakota, North Dakota, those kind of things.
Right. Yeah. So this, what I've got pulled up right here, Class 8 combines, and so not too dissimilar. Probably even a little more concentrated up here into the north in Minnesota, North Dakota, and Iowa, and Illinois to a little bit. That there's just a lot of those, and this is currently listed within the last month. I'm going to click this back to, I'm just taking a guess on here in the 6 months. But yeah, there were more in Nebraska from what we heard. There's a lot sitting out there, and those have kind of been pushed a little bit more to the east, just because they had an over surplus for available buyers out there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, seeing a little bit of that change happen. And in combines as a whole, just click off of all Class 8s and look at all combines. This is just a 1 month period here.
Yeah.
But yeah, still on all combines, with the exception of a couple hour periods in Class 8s, seeing year-over-year price increases still going up a little bit at dealerships. When I was doing this analysis earlier, the 2,000 to 3,000 hour category, and this is machine hours, on some Class 8s, I was surprised to see that those were the strongest year-over-year price increases. And I didn't know from your take, why that is, because there's certainly a lot of those out there. I mean, that's kind of that period of combines that are those 12 to 14 manufactured years where there's a surplus of them. Yeah. But people are still paying a premium for them.
Well, I think it kind of goes back to some other stuff I've been talking about when you look at, excuse me, where you look at some of the movement of machines and what they look like based around the buying habits of the customer blocks that we're seeing now, right? So I'm a firm believer right now that with the price of machines the way they are and interest rates the way they are, it's really kind of locked, buyer groups into a certain perspective. And I think when you look at the machines that are there, that's what's available in their buying block. And they've missed a couple other machines as they've kind of, they've probably been trying to buy a combine for a few years, and they're making sure that they're getting the one that they want. And I think some of the ones that are probably bringing a more premium price than others are the ones that are exceptionally good for what they are. It might be a 2,000-hour machine, but it may have just gotten through the shop, right? And they spent $25,000 on it or whatever, to make it do whatever. Those machines, I think, are the ones, because that's really the biggest differentiator right now is, especially those machines, you're looking at something with 1,500, 2,000 hours on it, something like that, is that what's been done to it and what still needs to be done to it, and that's going to really dictate, is it a $50,000 rig or is it a $125,000 or $130,000 rig? And I think that's the big driving factor there.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, we just repaired the chopper on a new Class 8 that we bought, new to us, and the cost wasn't that much to be able to do it. So it made it very manageable, but it's also sitting in that range.
Yeah. Yeah, I look at these things and I see some of those patterns that kind of support what I'm talking about, but at the end of the day, you still got a lot of machines out there that are 300,000 plus. I mean, there's a
right.
Well, you're probably looking at them here. That the 1,000-hour machines that you've got on there. Mm-hmm. Those are all 300,000 plus dollar combines.
Right. Yeah, and that's at auction. I mean, yeah. You go look. 1,000-hour machines. Let's take a look at the dealer side. Take off the auction here, and just see those. So the light blues this year. Yeah. Oh yeah, on average, I mean, almost 460. Less than 500 is 560, 550. And then you're right. That's a huge proportion of them. If we're looking at the overall proportion in the market right now, less than 1,000 machine hours on those two categories. It's about 40% of the overall market.
Yeah.
So that represents the risk that's sitting on the dealer's lots right now. And I didn't show this graph yet, so I'm gonna have to convert over here. But let's just take a look at just those Class 8s. That'll be, this is volume here on the top. And, this is essentially the sell-off that we had in July and August. You and I were talking about all of the combines that were sold. And, for whatever price they were pushed and pushed hard, this is Class 8s. I'm wondering how much of that market is saturated. And we're still sitting up there with a pretty high supply.
And so I track something similar to this and kind of watch it go, and you build your graph, and you'll start to see it as it dips off, as it goes through these auction cycles that we're seeing, and then then it comes right back. You know what I mean? And this is the time of year when you're going to see a lot of combines showing back up. New ones are getting delivered. You're starting to see a lot more stuff coming in, and you're going to start to see a lot more stuff get advertised just because of various EOPs that are out there and those kind of things, or order writing periods and those kind of things. They're all starting to show up. So you're going to see more machines pop up there. But to watch it go through the auction cycle, that's we see the dip and then it comes back. You see the dip and it comes back, and that's the hammer that keeps trying to bang those stupid combines back down.
Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right, because that's the most concerning thing when I see this is we went through the July and August period when you should move a lot of the combines off, and they did. I mean, this green line shows that they're being aggressive on trying to get the combines off the lot, and it only got down to there by mid-August.
Yeah.
You know, and granted, last year was incredibly low, but here this light blue line is, you know, a lot of those late additions that should have come pre-harvest, but they were delivered late, and that started this. But the fact that we're up here and not somewhere down here is not a good starting point.
Yeah, it's not. So when you're looking at, I know you guys have a function in your inside of Iron Comps there where you can see upcoming auctions and what that looks like. What's that look like? What's the future future inventory out there look like as far as auction stuff goes?
Yeah, well, considering, you know, we're August 31st now, we actually pulled that up within Tractor Zoom. So I'll go within Tractor Zoom, and I don't have it pulled up here. I can here in a second. And I just go create an alert saying, hey, I'm looking for combines. And then it'll email me anytime something hits my spec. So I can even say Class 8s for a certain price, certain geography. And then so I'll monitor the market that way, both personally for my farms if I need to buy something, but also I just do it for just the knowledge of knowing what's coming up.
Sure.
And we've got, you know, a few of the auctions, like you mentioned, that's happening essentially today. But really, we're kind of getting out of that season from the auction standpoint. So we're not seeing as much on the next, 2 weeks is really a lot of what we post as we have been seeing. And so, we'll sell a little bit more combines here in September, but I think we're going to be relatively quiet on the movement of those, especially for big dealer auctions after today, for quite some time.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to watch because I still think that you got these big one-day events that come through and those kind of things, but I still think the market is whatever the best way to say this. I think the buying public has a different look and feel for what's going to happen in the marketplace because of the weekly online auctions that are out there. And if you're a dealer right now, you could put 100 combines through auction and sell them 5 a week for 20 weeks and have your 100 combines through there. You could do that pretty easy. And realistically, the buying public really wouldn't know any different. You know what I mean? So that's not something like where you're going to have a giant, in your face type of deal. So it's going to be interesting to watch how it plays out through the end of the year. Because I think you're right. What we've seen happen so far, these big 20 plus combines on a number of auctions. I'm talking probably. I could give you 20 auctions that I've watched where there's that many or more combines on there. That's going to change. I mean, I don't know how many of these I don't know how many more of those we can see go through through the end of the year, and watching it happen. At the online side of it will be interesting to watch how that plays out.
Yeah. And another thing, I'm glad you brought that up because small plug for the Moving Iron Summit, but we meet in a couple of weeks down in Nashville. But one of the topics for your breakout session that I'm looking forward to is talking about what happens when you need to sell this stuff overseas and, put it on the boat, ship it out. That would be an interesting metric to track, especially for those weekly auctions where you're sending out the onesies and the twosies versus the 20 combine auctions. If you're selling 20 combines in an auction, you're going to get the attention of some overseas buyers. And I've heard the shipments, particularly to our west, to China, have been on the rise. It's been one of the stronger unloading markets for us. And so I would be curious to know on those auctions and those buyers, like, is there a correlation there between the big buyers, the big auctions, and send those things to China? And what information is in that sale that we can start to track that can help us?
Yeah, that's the one thing that's new. I don't want to say it's new, but it's just, I've been in used equipment for a long time and exported stuff to a lot of countries, and it wasn't until probably 5 years ago that I really started seeing China come to the table and buy stuff. on the used equipment side of it, because it was before that it was, well, we don't really want anything, we're gonna kind of slow the role of used equipment coming into our country and those kind of things, and that's really changed. So it's interesting to watch how that turns up and what that looks like. So must need a bunch of machines to reverse engineer so they can steal more technology. I guess. I don't know, but that might be what they're doing over there. But it'll be interesting to watch how that plays out, because the strength of the dollar right now has a lot to do with exports and what that looks like, and of course, world interest rates too. And we think it's bad here, but you go to some of these places that stuff gets exported to, and it's
right.
You have a cheaper credit card rate than these people have for interest rates. So it's all about cash and availability of it. So it's interesting to say the least, to watch how that works. But yeah, I think that's going to be a good topic, to sit down and talk about, because there's it's one of those things that a lot of people want to dabble in, but it takes so much time and patience and making sure you got the right export partners and stuff like that it's hard to jump through those hoops. But at the end of the day, it is another outlet that we will have to maximize as we look at what we have for supply. No different than in the past either. So it'll be interesting to watch how it plays out.
Right. Yeah, it's all tied together, and it brings, starts to make sense of what's going on in South America, Ukraine, China. Yep.
For sure. All right, let's talk a little bit real quick about anything else on combines you want to talk about before we move to the next one?
The only other thing on combines is I always just like to contrast this, and I know they're less on the value side, but once you start to look at Class 6 combines, just because I think with this, it's a nice, a little bit of comparison of, people that used to have Class 6 combines a couple decades ago, maybe even 3, are in Class 8s now. And so, I'm not saying we're ever going to move to a Class 11. I don't even know if that's possible. But hold on to this. It's kind of steady Eddie. There's still those farmers out there that still need them if they can get them. And so this is what a more mature market starts to look like. But you're really seeing, and I thought this is probably the most interesting thing, of how the Class 6 combines, pretty much commoditized by now, the auction and the dealer market just follow each other. But that's what you get when things are commoditized. But I thought that was interesting, and how the data is just fleshing that out.
Yep, that is interesting for sure. All right, let's jump over and talk real quick about what's happening in the sprayer market. You're starting to see the sprayer market pick up. You've seen a few machines show up here and there. You'll see a lot more new machines get delivered than we saw last year, but that might take another year before we really see a big influx of machines onto the marketplace. As you take a look at what's going on in the sprayer market, any big movement or anything like that you saw that you've seen month over month?
Yeah, I think the most interesting thing that I'm seeing in sprayers is that it's not interesting. That a little bit of this worry that we've got with combines, a little bit of the worry we've got with tractors, it's just not in the sprayer market. We're seeing some of the supply return just because I think the market's getting a little healthier. But values are still climbing. There's a pretty healthy spread, as there usually is. And I've got the hours here on a pretty wide basis. But the sprayer market looks healthy, and I think that's probably due to a few things. The allocation was there, and so they didn't overproduce. Not necessarily easy to overproduce on those sprayers, and I think a little bit has to do with just the profitability that farmers had last year. It's one of those things that if they've got extra profitability, they might buy a self-propelled sprayer. They might have that control to spray, and it's just being needed that much more. Fungicide really took off late in the year once everybody realized we might actually get a corn crop. And so the ability to apply late in the year, so you need a higher end sprayer for that. I think it's just the farmers are starting to realize, like, this is a nice tool to have in the tool belt, and I'm willing to pay for it. And pay for it now while I have some profitability.
Sure. Yeah, I think you're right. Because what you see when you look at most of the stuff is that if there's anything out there that is the two biggest machines out there that have the technology that's really changing the way people farm, it's in planters and it's in sprayers,
Yep.
And if you find that opportunity to get that higher spec sprayer out there that's used and it's a decent price, I think you're right. I think you can see some guys moving to that, because not that the co-ops can't get to them, but it's just that there's There's a lot that they have to get done and cover a lot of acres, and I think this is we're starting to see. We saw that kind of peak up in late 2010, 11, 12, where there were more sprayers getting sold on the farm.
Yeah,
kind of stayed that way, and I think we're starting to see that boost again in that getting more sprayers on the farm.
Yeah, I agree that it's and you're right that the co-ops can do it and they can do a good job, but they're running into labor issues as well.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
who's going to get sprayed first, and as timely as some of this needs to be done. Sometimes your window is only a day or two.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden your profitability rationale goes out the window if you miss that window.
Yep, that's for sure. Definitely for sure. Awesome. So what do you got here? What's this?
Within sprayers, we've got a little bit of a price decline that's more seasonal than anything. You see that, and you just get that with your general just depreciation.
Sure.
And just the number that's listed by our range, the washout curve is healthy. And you can even now, within the traction product, you can even go in there within every 50 hours and start to look and dice this up, even if you wanted to, by your state. So trying to figure out what the market is and within your AOR and get to a pretty nuanced level. Just depends on what kind of question you want to ask it.
For sure.
The one thing that I did see and I wanted to bring up, so this is, the list price of sprayers here. And I saw this little bit of a gap. It's like, is that 1,000-hour sprayer not worth anything? And there's not a lot of auction data out there for the past 2 months with relatively low hour sprayers.
Yeah.
And in this particular one, 500 to 1,000 hours, you can actually go up here and see that there should be green dots up here for the sprayer auction market.
Yeah.
And there hasn't been, not like last year. And so you don't see a ton of these in the market, but I'm seeing almost none of these in the market right now. And that also just tells me that it's a desirable thing. If a farmer doesn't have to give it up, they're not giving it up right now. And so just another sign that I think this sprayer market isn't overproduced. And there's, the allocation's been working, and there's limited ones out there for still some available dollars.
Yeah. That's one other thing I was going to talk to you about to see if your data supported this, and then we'll wrap it up here. But as you're looking at, so no matter what you're looking at, you see price declines right now, and the price is declining as far as advertised retail price goes. It's
Correct,
not like sharply going down by any means, but a lot of that just kind of a premium that we saw get put on early during COVID that we saw pop up when everything was there. You're starting to see those machines that were traded for 6 or 8 months ago come back in, and where they've been advertised at throughout the trade cycle until they've gotten the new machines in. Those machines are you're starting to see those machines get dropped by $5,000 or $10,000 or $15,000, whatever it is.
Right.
Not big movements by any means, but you're starting to see it. I feel like that we're starting to see that erosion of price, and I think by the end of 24, we're going to see a market that may be down 20 or 30% from what it was today. Not because the market's in a bad spot or there's some kind of crazy collapse coming, but it's just you have to realign your pricing as supply comes back into play, and we're starting to see that. Your data's tracking something similar?
Yeah, it definitely is, and I think I'm seeing it different by the brands. I mean, John Deere saw some pretty aggressive price increases in the last couple of years, and I'm seeing probably more aggressive price decreases right now across green items. I'm seeing it across everything. It's just probably correlated to what we saw with the price increases that were happening in 2022. And so, we are seeing this 2% price decrease that's happening right now, but it's really kind of your obsolescence of things are just older, even if they're not being used and not being depreciated with hours. They're just going to be an older model that's sitting around, so it's going to have some slight depreciation. And I'm seeing that across the board with almost everything. Let's see if I don't make a liar out of myself here. With the exception of probably four-wheel drive tractors. That's been another piece in the market where I said, sprayers are holding their value. Planters, you're not really in the season, but those are still holding their value. There are a few four-wheel drive tractors, though, that are doing really well. And what I've got pulled up here is just our look at our market trends at four-wheel drive tractors above 425 horse, and this is just auction value. So this is fair market, invisible hand moving out here. Year-over-year auction price increases of strong auction prices in this light green right now versus a year ago in August of last year. So that's just one indication that, if you can get your hands on a good low hour 4-wheel drive tractor, so just to add some muscle to your farm,
Yep.
a lot of farmers are paying to do it.
Yep. And that's another thing too. I mean, if there's any one machine out there that all manufacturers are having a hard time getting produced, it's for whatever reason, it's articulated 4-wheel drives. Tires and tracks and all those things just seem to be holding those up. And then you just look at it's just everybody, K-Steer, everybody's having a hard time getting all that stuff in. So it's going to be, the 4-wheel drive thing to me is a little bit volatile too, because once that market supply starts hit again, 4-wheel drives just kind of fluctuate. And it might actually drive sales, because as prices start coming down, like to your point, more guys might start showing up and saying, hey, I need some cheap horsepower. I'm going to get something here now. And that could start popping up too. So.
Yeah, and I know we've talked about this podcast or two ago, but with the 4-wheel drives, you kind of have a opposite correlation with no-till. You're just going to plow things over. And just by following a couple areas around the country this year, the no-till did not go well in a lot of areas around the country. And I know some farmers that just got burned by it and then might be giving it up. So there might be more of a need just for that beast to put the field under.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Okay. All right, man. That's probably a good place to stop, Andy. Talk a little bit about where they can go get information for Tractor Zoom and Iron Comps. Yeah.
So with Tractor Zoom, first of all, we'd love to meet everybody in person. And so if you're listening to this and you're going to be at the Moving Iron Summit, we'd love to have you. We'll have a booth there, giving a presentation and taking part in the panels. So super excited for that coming up here in early September. For the dealer listing piece, so all this data that you have on here and all of our partners that are able to access this data, even their own personal data for their dealership within there, they're able to leverage the power of that in a big data sense. That's completely free if they sign up for TractorZoom.com, and then they can go there and have all their listings on TractorZoom.com, and we take care of the heavy lifting. So that allows them to get their data into the system for free. And then if they're interested in the valuation piece, whether it's comps on the search results, building out the inventory, so a little bit more predictive stuff on time on lot and managing your inventory pricing strategy, they can go to ironcomps.com right now and reach out to us there. And if you just want to talk shop, I enjoy all the conversations I can get. And you can reach me at Campbell@TractorZoom.com.
Right on. Andy, appreciate you guys being on. Look forward to seeing you in a couple weeks, and we'll share a cocktail with 12 while we're down there.
Yes, we will.
All right, man. All right, buddy. I'm Casey Seymour with Moving Iron Podcast. Check me out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Moving Iron LLC. Go to LinkedIn at Moving Iron Podcast. Go to the YouTube channel so you can see these fancy graphs that Andy puts out here on the video version at Moving Iron Podcast, and you can go see everything at MovingIronLLC.com. That is Moving Iron related. So with that, I'm Casey Seymour with Andy Campbell. Let's go move some iron, folks. Out.
Moving iron in the 21st century. Hard work